The Nikon 24-105 lens with an aperture of f4 to 7.1. Is this really the lens that you want? Let's find out. In this video, I'm going to show you what to expect from the new Nikon 24-105 lens, but I'm also going to show you what you'll be missing by using this lens, and how the lens being a 7.1 aperture on the 105mm zoom in can be a disaster to your photos, and why I would recommend passing on it and saving up for a much better lens that will work for you for years into the future. I will show some test shooting showing you what the difference is going from f4 all the way to that f7.1 and how that will affect your images and changes your ISO needs and massively changes your flash needs. For the test shooting, I'm going to be using two cameras, a Nikon Z6 camera that we can see right here with the Nikon 24-120 f4 lens on it. It has a constant aperture of f4, but we can also shoot it at f7.1 and the same zoom ranges as the new Nikon 24-105 for demonstration purposes so you can see the difference. But then I'm also going to be using this right here, a Sony a6700 crop sensor camera with the Tamron 17 to 72.8 lens on it. The reason for this is the crop sensor, the 70mm equals the full frame equivalent of 105. So it's giving us the same zoom range as the new Nikon 24-105, giving us the 105. But the Tamron lens is a constant f2.8 lens. So on a crop sensor camera like the a6700, a 2.8 lens basically equals the same look as an f4 lens on a full frame camera. Also in this video, I'm going to show you a lot of photos because I've been shooting with the Nikon 24-120 f4 lens ever since it came out. I've shot literally hundreds of jobs with it between weddings and family portraits and a little bit of everything. So I'm going to show you what you can expect from the new Nikon 24-105 lens because I have a lot of things I've shot in that same range. But I'm also going to show you what you are going to be missing because there's lots of things that once you get into the 5.6, 6.3, 7.1 range, you're just not going to get the same kind of looks, the same type of feel. You're going to have higher ISOs and so on. So I'm going to be able to show you lots of pictures. We'll start out with the good stuff and what you can expect from that lens. Then we'll move into some shot just at 105, some shot at just 120 on this lens, and you'll get to see a lot of things that with the new Nikon 24-105 lens, you just won't be able to get the same quality out of it compared to shooting with this Nikon 24-120 f4 because you're staying at an aperture f4 throughout the whole entire zoom range. So it makes a huge difference. So we're going to look at a lot of pictures shot from a lot of different days on a lot of different jobs we've done, and you can see for yourself. We're outside to do some test shooting. Over on the left is the Nikon Z6 with the 24-120 f4 lens, and on the right is the Sony a6700 with the Tamron 17 to 70 2.8 lens. And for our test shooting, we will be shooting this Portuguese bird that we got on a trip we took to Portugal. Here's the Nikon at f4 and ISO 200 to kick things off. Next, we're going to jump up to an f-stop of 5.6, and now we see some light loss immediately happening. Now we're going to go to 6.3, and we're going to see a lot more light loss. And now at 7.1, you're going to see a massive amount of light loss. To get that light loss back, I had to turn the camera all the way to ISO 640, as we see right here, and it over brightens pretty much everything. This is what you're going to have to deal with. Now we will look at them both side by side. You can see on the right the Nikon at the f7.1, which you would be at with the new 24-105 lens. It's very dark compared to the APS-C lens that's a constant aperture at f2.8. And now we see both of them side by side, bringing the Nikon back down to f4 that matches the 2.8, so they're even. Let's do another test. We moved over by these woods in the back area, and it's a lot darker here, so we have to shoot at a much higher ISO starting point. Here's the next test shot, and now we're at ISO 640 because it's a darker area. Here's at 5.6, we lose a lot of light. Now as we're going to jump to 6.3, we lose even more light. And now we're going to go to that 7.1. Look how dark this gets. This is the kind of light loss you're going to get with this lens. That 105 end is at f7.1, not so great. The camera metering showed me that I had to bring the ISO all the way to ISO 5000 to get the right exposure. Here's another side-by-side with the APS-C camera and the Nikon at the 7.1, which is so dark. And then we see the Nikon bringing it back down to f4 that matches the 2.8 type of brightness. Here's an even lower light test. I had to be at ISO 8000, but to match this with an aperture of 7.1, you have to be all the way up to 51,200, and then you get this very overbright image. Next, I'm going to talk about what can you do with the Nikon 24-105 lens. I'm going to show you a lot of good examples of what you can do, but I'm also going to show you what you can't do and what you're going to miss out by buying this lens. What I mean by what you can do is with this lens being a 24-105 millimeter lens, these are the types of photos that you will be able to take very easily. I'm using my 24-120 f4 lens, but I'm shooting it all in the wide ends. A lot of this is shot at f4, maybe f5 at the most. You'll be able to do with this with the new 24-105 lens, no problem. But as you keep looking at the pictures, what you're noticing, you're mostly seeing wide shots here. That's because if you were using the 24-105 new lens, you can only shoot at f4 to f5 in the wide range. Once you start moving the lens up, zooming in a little bit more, you're going to jump to 5.6. Then you're going to jump to 6.3. Then you're going to hit that 105 millimeter maximum zoom range, and you're going to be at a 7.1 aperture. So you're going to lose all your light gathering ability. You're going to have to push your ISO up much higher. And if you're using flash, it's going to destroy your flash ability because now you have to put out 7.1 amount of flash output versus if you were just using the 24-120 constant f4 lens, because then you would be able to use less flash power. So what you are seeing is the kind of quality that you will be able to get from the 24-105 lens, especially when you're keeping it in the wide range like this. When you start zooming in more, your aperture is going to go up to 6.3 or 7.1 at the full zoom range. So what I'm going to be showing you next is the problems that you're going to deal with when you get into that 7.1 range. So you're going to see many things coming up that you won't be able to shoot with this lens because of that 7.1 lens. So now we go into what can you not shoot with the Nikon 24-105 lens. Well, there's lots of things you're not going to be able to shoot because you're going to have to crank your ISO up, and if you're using flash, it's going to kill your flash power. So in this segment of images, everything I'm showing here was shot at f4 and 105 millimeter. I scanned all my images and found images that were only shot at f4 and 105 millimeters to give you an idea of what 105 millimeters looks like if you were to get the 24-105 lens. The only problem here is if you get the 24-105 millimeter new lens, you can't shoot at f4. So you're not going to be able to get this same type of quality that I'm getting at f4, for example, the nice bokeh background. And here I'm using bounce flash. There's flash up hitting the ceiling, and I'm using a higher ISO. So at 7.1, your ISO would be so high, it would create incredible noise in the picture. And at 7.1, you'd have to use a massive amount of flash to be even bounce the flash off, because at 7.1 it takes a tremendous amount of more flash power than if you're shooting at f4. Now we're back out to showing some natural light photos. We do a lot of beach portraits and beach weddings. That's what we're seeing a lot of photos of. But once again, this is shot all at f4 and 105 millimeter. The 105 millimeter gives you a great idea of the zoom range you could get at the full 105 zoom, but you're not going to get this f4 brightness, and you're not going to get the nicer background blur that you get at f4, the background bokeh, because it's 7.1. You're not going to have enough light coming into the camera to achieve that. This is why I would recommend saving up and buying the 24 to 120 f4 lens. Now on this next shot, this was shot at ISO 1000. So could you imagine what your ISO would have to be if you're shooting this at 7.1? Maybe you'd have to be at ISO 6400 or something. That's just insane. Working on the beach, many times we were shooting into sunset because of the f4 and the brightness of bringing the f4 amount of light in. A lot of things look a lot brighter than they actually are. Some nice background bokeh there. Some more nice background bokeh. At f4, at 105, if you can keep it at f4, you can get some very good, nice background bokeh behind your images, especially when you're zoomed in a lot closer like this. That's why we use the Nikon 24 to 120 f4 lens all the time for weddings, because of that zoom range. And then we can zoom out and shoot wide group shots after the wedding for all the wedding party shots, bride and groom shots, and so on. So the one lens covers the full wedding, reception, and everything all the way to the end. Now I'm going to show you images where everything was shot at 120 millimeters with the 24 to 120 lens at various different apertures, but most of the time it's going to be around f4 to f5. Going from 105 millimeter to 120 may not seem like a lot, but when you're at a wedding or an event like this, that can be the difference between getting that nice tighter zoom shot or not. Also at 120, that extra reach gives you a little bit extra background bokeh. The Nikon 24 to 120 f4 lens has been a complete workhorse lens for us. We've used it for events, weddings, going on vacation, just shooting things around town. Like, hey, there's a helicopter. We have a lot of helicopters that fly down the beach all the time. But this lens has been excellent. We haven't had a single thing go wrong with it the whole time we've had it. It works just as good as the day we got it. Now look at the fantastic background bokeh blur you get right there by zooming in. This would be at 120. All these are at 120. Right there, that's ISO 1000 and f4. If you were using the new 24 to 105 lens, would be at like what, ISO 6400 probably again. So you'd be introducing all kind of noise. Here we are again, 120 millimeter f4. Look at that fantastic background bokeh from the 24 to 120 f4 lens. It's a very versatile lens that covers just about everything and anything you would need to shoot. Coming up here in just a little bit, we're going to go into a mixture of images shot at all different zoom ranges to show you what that looks like. Okay, now a mixture of photos from different zoom ranges from f4 to f5.6. So nothing is past 5.6 to give you an idea of that type of range. In other words, if you have the new 24 to 105 lens and you're shooting at 105, you're going to be past 5.6 because you're going to be stuck at 7.1, which would kill this flash power that's being used right there. I'd have to boost that up. Here we go, a nice high school senior portrait in a nice area. Once again, we do lots of weddings on the beach. It's hard to believe, but most of these pictures are all from just 1 year. We average around 125 to 150 jobs a year, but we're currently going into retirement, and that's why we're focusing more on these YouTube videos. I've got all this experience shooting with all these cameras, lenses, equipment, editing. So like and subscribe to the channel. We'll have a lot more videos, including videos on marketing your photography business. We've been doing it for years. Website design for our photography business. We rate SEO #1 in our area and have been for years. I can show everybody how to do this. It does take a little bit of work and a little bit of time, but you can do it. Now back to the images here. Here's a fun image of this young couple jumping up in the air on the beach, and I've got a close-up of them coming here next. But of course, this is not at 7.1. None of these pictures are at 7.1. That's why they're bright and clear. Many of them are at f4. Some of them might be at f5 or 5.6 at the most. Now this next image, this is with off-camera flash coming in from the right, and this is not at 7.1, or else that would be much darker. Now I'm going to add in some music now for some more pictures as we go a little bit further, and I'll come back and talk some more later. So what do you think? Are you going to buy the Nikon 24-105 lens, or save up a little bit more and get the much better Nikon 24-120 f4 lens? I think I've demonstrated throughout this video that by having the zoom end of your lens at 105mm and being a 7.1 aperture, that's just not a very good thing. It does not let much light in, and you're going to have to raise your ISO up, and it's also going to affect every type of flash photography that you're going to be able to do. I've also shown that you could be using an APS-C camera with the Tamron lens because it's a constant aperture, so you won't be losing light or needing to boost your flash power or crank up your ISO. So for me, I would definitely recommend saving up a little bit more and buying the better Nikon 24-120 f4 lens. It will suit you well on into the future. It's a great all-around lens. So that's it for today's video. Please like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time.